a gigantic flood, an overthrow of the world as we know it now, I don't think we should rule out the possibility that they may be speaking of real physical events which caused them to want to draw particular attention to this date in our calendar, 21st of December 2012.
There were floods and hurricanes in the Maya area, and the idea of a watery ending to the world, pictured on page 74 of the Dresden Codex, last page, water gushing out of the mountain to sky. These were real experiences, and you have it in the Enuma Elish, which is the Sumerian creation myth. It is in world mythology, because the world is destroyed, and it is recreated. And we take these marvelous stories of destruction of the world and recreation, and then we bring them into a macroscopic kind of focus by imagining it's the whole world that's going to end. And yes, my friends, it will end. There's no question. There will be an end of the world. You know, study these creation myths and you'll see they're there for a good reason. I mean, people did experience the destruction of their world, and they did rebuild it. And it happened before, and it'll happen again. Unless, I mean, the way to avoid it in New Orleans is to build better floodgates. And so, see, so it's participatory, isn't it? You can make it happen, but you have to work for it. You can't just lay back and do nothing. You've got to be a participant in your cosmology.
Unprecedented activity on the Sun and increasingly frequent natural disasters on Earth have led some scientists to predict an ominous climax in or about the year 2012. Author Lawrence Joseph has single-mindedly forged an understanding of the scientific data and the perils we may be facing.
Solar storms will climax in 2012, and the global satellite system is therefore at risk. Let's examine what the global satellite system means to us. Telecommunications, funds transfers, and military, climate, everything bounces off a satellite. The fact of the matter is that a lot of these satellites are not, quote-unquote, hardened sufficiently against increased solar output. Moreover, I found out that a lot of our military communications have been, for reasons of budget and I'm not sure why else, have been fobbed off onto commercial satellites which are not hardened. So a lot of the basic military security that we rely on in the satellite system is open to solar attack. Now, what does that mean, solar attack? It's not that the sun doesn't like us and is after us. There's no paranoia in this. It's simply that when the sun has storms, it shoots out billion-ton blasts of protons and other radiation. Most of it goes off in other directions, but a certain percentage of it will hit the Earth, just the law of averages. Recently, we have found strange occurrences. Usually it takes about 2 to 3 days for coronal mass ejection, a CME, which is the term for this blast, to travel from the sun to the Earth. But in January 2005, there was one that made it in 30 minutes. Unless Einstein was seriously mistaken, if that thing cut another 22 minutes off of its travel time, went down to 8 minutes, would be the speed of light, we would be completely obliterated. California-sized cracks are opening up in the Earth's magnetic field, and when the crack opens up, the magnetic field is our shield against these coronal mass ejections, our shield against solar radiation. And when the crack opens up, our shields are down, Scotty.
Not all scientists agree with Joseph's findings. Colgate University professor of astronomy and anthropology, Anthony Avini, is skeptical that external forces are creating most of the changes we are experiencing on Earth.
If a stream of solar particles can cause a radio fade out, it can also affect satellite communications. But I don't think that it's going to have any large-scale geophysical effect on the Earth. And I suppose you could, if you really want to push it, you could connect it with weather. But we have to remember that the bulk of the effect that produces hurricanes, tornadoes, is entirely encased within the Earth. It's got a lot more to do with rotation and the circulation of air than it does with these outside effects, but I would admit that they could have a meteorological effect.
There are a number of theories as to why the sun is acting up in this way, and why in 2012 it will be the next climax of such activity. I had become familiar with the work of Dr. Alexei Dmitriev, who's a Russian geophysicist who, for about a decade now, has contended, in a nutshell, that our entire solar system is moving into an interstellar energy cloud. And this cloud is responsible for exciting the atmospheres of the planets, including the Earth, and particularly the Sun. And the reason why the sunspots are growing stronger and more frequent is because we're moving into this cloud. He based his findings on a lifetime of esteemed work, and particularly his team had meticulously analyzed Voyager satellite data. And we're seeing things we've never seen before. And he believes, and has devoted a good 15 years to proving that we've entered an energy cloud that we will remain in, probably, he guesses, and he cannot verify this, for about 3,000 years. And this energy cloud is simply shaking things up. And it's having its strongest direct effect on the sun, which in turn has effect on all the other planets, including the Earth. So that's the most well-researched theory as to why the sun is behaving strangely. Most scientists, I think, will give you that it may well be the most active the sun has been since the end of the last ice age. So we can't really infer reliably from earthbound data, which is all we have, how the sun acted before the end of the last ice age. But it appears that since then, this is the wildest it has been. Virtually everyone will agree that 2012 is the next year of solar climax.
The coming solar maximum in 2012 is not the only cause for concern. Scientists have noticed a weakening of the Earth's magnetic field and a shifting of the poles, some even suggesting that the North and South poles could literally reverse places with each other.
I think viewers have probably read about the changing in the magnetic poles of the Earth, the magnetic reversal. It overturns very slowly. May take a few hundreds of years to make a complete overturn. And it's probably the case that we're in an overturn now, a beginning of an overturn, because the position of the magnetic pole has migrated some few hundred miles in the last few decades. So it is beginning to overturn. Now the real question is, what is the effect of the overturn of the magnetic field on Earth phenomena? There could be a reduction in the shielding effect. This could have some consequence. I don't think it's known whether the consequence will be calamitous, disastrous. It certainly won't be sudden. But probably some meteorological change will take place.
This planet has at its heart a ball of molten iron with enormous mass and weight, which is also spinning inside the Earth itself. Is it possible that there's some interruption in this spin, perhaps to do with magnetism, perhaps to do with solar magnetism, which literally capsizes the Earth? I wouldn't rule it out entirely, and there's much that's come down to us from the past that suggests that.
Lots has been said about a potential pole shift. It seems clear that the poles are beginning to move at rates that have not ever been measured before. Whether or not this is the beginning of an actual pole shift, or more, how long this all will take, I don't think anybody can say. But of more immediate concern is 2012, 5 years from now. The consequences for us here are going to be greater. For the satellite system, for our health in terms of skin cancers and cataracts in the eyes, and a host of health-related issues, and perhaps, again, as I mentioned, there's a growing body of evidence that earthquakes and volcanoes, and of course hurricanes, are related to solar input. We have to learn it fast. At least we have to get a sense of the magnitude of this connection and what we might be able to do to minimize these effects.
I think the thing that fascinates me most about 2012 is just the totality of the information. I mean, not only do we have ancient prophecies and, of course, the Mayan calendar, and it all seems to culminate in 2012. We all know, of course, that there's Earth changes taking place, polar caps melt.